Okay.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, just want to say welcome to the European Data Incubator webinar. We're going to be talking about the open call for startups. And today we will start with Diego Ipina, coordinator of EDI. Then we will have Sarah Mateo, who is responsible for the open call, and she will guide us through the guidelines and give some important tips for you. Afterwards, we bring you two of our EDI stars, Cyprian from Morphle and Vinay from Leapcraft. They both went through the 3 phases of EDI and will briefly present their journey. We will finally open the session for questions and answers, and when the time comes, please say the name of your startup and then the question in the chat. We will read them out loud so that everyone can hear it. Thank you once again for joining, and over to you, Diego.
Thank you, Sofia. And welcome everybody to this second open call webinar, where we are going to try to give you tips about how you can apply as a startup or as an SME to our incubator program. I am Diego López de Piña, the coordinator of this H2020 project. Okay, so this is the outline of what I will be covering in my short 10-minute long presentation. So EDI started the 1st of January of 2018. So we've been already working on the project for 17 months. We have, in fact, finished the first round of incubation that has been promoted by this project. And as a matter of fact, you are taking part in this webinar because you are interested on taking part on our second open call, which will be the launch of the second round of companies incubation within EDI. There are on board 20 partners, as you can see. Moreover, we incorporated 5 new data providers during this first year. So we have a total of 20 data providers on board, and then you have the listing of the names, and they are covering different interesting sectors like energy, transport, sports, industry 4.0. More details in the challenge page of the second open call. We are going to produce now a very small video.
EDI is an international incubator that gives big tech startups the chance to solve a real-world data challenge set by corporates. It will give you up to 100K free equity, mentoring, opportunity, workshops, run by experts, access to account environment or a scale.
Okay, so this was a video that summarizes a bit what EDI is about, and basically was in pictures and images from the different companies as they progress through our incubation program. So here you have some interesting testimonials. Actually, one of them is coming from one of the companies that is going to be telling you about their journey in the EDI incubator. So for instance, Morphle says that I would absolutely recommend European Data Incubator to any AI or big data startup in Europe. It's a unique opportunity to learn from like-minded people, industry experts, and value. And you may read the other 2 testimonials. So, well, the experience and the feedback we got from participants in the program was quite positive, and we are even more encouraged to keep working hard to make sure that another batch of successful companies take part in the incubator in this second round of incubation. So the idea is that within EDI, we organize an 8-month-long incubation program, which consists of 3 stages. There are more details in the website. And before you access to this incubator, actually, you need to go through this open call process in which you all are currently embarked. And my colleague, Sarah from Zavala will later on give you more details about how you apply for our open call. But the idea is that after the open call is closed, we launch an evaluation process. From that evaluation process, we select a range of companies. Those companies embark in the explore stage for 2 months when they create a business model and a mock-up. Then they attend to an event in Berlin to defend their mock-up. If they are successful, 1/3 of those companies progress into the experiment stage. They work there for 4 months. They create a MVP and a business plan. They defend their solution in Bilbao at the end of those 4 months. And if they progress, about 1/3 of those companies, they move into the evolve stage, where after 2 months, they have a public presentation of their solution in a meeting in Berlin, where investors also attend in order to see opportunities, investment opportunities among you. So EDI basically aims to incubate SMEs and startups that use big data technology to address problems, challenges faced by different businesses belonging to distinct sectors. And there are 2 main, it's a 2-way process. Basically, what EDI does, that's the biggest contribution, it brings together large European corporates that they have data, but they also have many problems they don't know how to solve with that data, and creative and highly innovative SMEs that take those challenges and try to devise solutions for those big corporations. So for instance, during the first round of incubation, in this case, a company producing cars, Volkswagen, and the plant that they have in Navarra, Spain, had provided to the EDI a data set with regarding energy consumption associated to the power plant that fits the factory. And in this case, one company called Big Data Solutions, what it tried to do is to enhance the operation of that thermal power plant by applying different data science, different AI algorithms, and deploying a big data solution. So basically, they came up with a solution to smart tune this thermal plant and save energy and therefore costs to this organization, to Volkswagen Navarra. So we're indeed looking for big data innovators like you and entrepreneurs solving real-life big data challenges from corporates, and you can apply it to very different sectors, from improving road safety to predicting fraudulent transactions to identifying patterns in digital campaigns and much more. There, at the bottom of this slide, you see the different sectors that are covered by our program: retail sector, transport sector, smart cities, sports, gaming, energy, and environment. So, as I already outlined, we go through 3 steps if you are successful and qualified for our incubator. First, you explore the big data sets, then you experiment with them, you have access to the whole full data set provided by the EDI data provider, and you develop the first working solution. And then, if you are lucky and qualified for the evolve stage, you try to launch this new product into the market, or hopefully you are also invested directly by the corporate to which you are helping by addressing their problem. So this is more or less the timeline in which the second round of incubation of the EDI program will take place. You apply with new proposals until 19th of June. We select them towards the end of July. You get notified and you have to sign a contract with us if you are selected to start the incubation process at the beginning of September. Then for 2 months, you get up to 5,000 euros to prepare the mock-up and attend the Datathon in Berlin at the end of October. Then, if you qualify to the next stage, you get up to 80,000 euros, and there you have to develop a fully fledged working MVP with a business plan. You defend that in a final event in Bilbao. If you qualify, you have 2 more months to carry out the evolve stage, where you try to reach to the market and to find new investors. So what do we offer you from EDI? We offer you the support by assigning you a coach that is going to help you in the whole incubation process. We're going to be offering different workshops that help you in different topics that are of importance if you want to create, mature, further develop a company in the big data area. We give you up to 100,000 euros. It is equity-free funding. And I always say up to 100,000 euros because the money you get, it highly depends on the degree of achievement of the objectives that will be set by you, the data provider, and the coach. You are offered a free cloud environment where you can deploy your solutions. And more importantly, you have direct access with large corporates. You have full access to their data sets in order to develop an innovative solution. So there are 2 ways or 2 types of participants that we consider. On one hand, and mainly this was the case of the first round, SMEs apply. They have to be SMEs legally established in an eligible country, in a age 2020 eligible country. Alternatively, groups of individuals, 2 to 4 people, can apply as long as they are residents in the eligible countries. And something very important, if they progress to the experiment stage, they must be legally registered as an SME. They can start the incubator being a group of individuals, but they have to finish it to progress already to the second stage, being a legal SME. So there are 3 ways to participate. The first one, the somehow default way of participating. You browse the challenges that are being offered by the corporates. You identify one where you think you have the skills to solve it. You explore the data set associated to that challenge, and you propose a solution. So you are forced to solve the challenge specified by the data provider. Second way of participating, half and half. There, you are only forced to use one data set from EDI. You are free to propose a challenge. You must mix the EDI data set with an external data set to which you have access. If you prove that and you propose a convincing challenge, then you may be qualified through this second way of participating. And the third one, you can bring into EDI your own data provider and together with a data provider, a challenge. And then you try to address that challenge of that data provider you bring on board to EDI. In this way of participating, later on more details will be given by my colleague Sara Mateo from Zavala. in this case, the provider, the new provider of data, has to first complete certain fields in the application form. It has to be validated as a proper new data provider, and then you can submit your proposal. So this is my last slide. Applications are open. This is the way to apply by going to the website and hitting the Apply Now button available there. So this is it from my side. Now I pass the floor to my colleague, Sara Mateo, that is going to talk to you about how to apply. So.
Okay, thank you, Diego. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to share now my screen. Okay, so after Diego's presentation, I'm going to focus more in the application process and all the things that it's necessary to take into account to succeed in the process. So we will review the submission and proposal structure, the eligibility criteria, how the evaluation works, and how the results, the communication results will be provided. So the application process. Diego has explained the 3 phases of the incubation, but now we are in a previous stage, in the submission stage, where you are preparing your proposals that will be submitting through F6S platform by the 19th of June, and then there will be a process of evaluation and negotiation before the official start of the incubation. So, what is important here for the submission? If you want to participate and apply to our call, what is the first thing that you need to do? Very, very important is to read the guidelines and also to check the facts, the frequently asked questions that we have in our website. It seems very obvious, but it's important to remind you. Once that you have all the information in your mind, it's time to choose the best way to participate in our call. As already explained by Diego, there are 3 different tracks for participation, and each of them has a different requirement or different conditions. So, once that you are determined to apply, you should visit our EDI website. So I'm going to show you. Okay, and you will access to this screen where you have a direct access to the form. So if you click here, you will be redirected to F6S form. Here you can see how the form is. And the first thing that you have to do in the form is to carefully read all the information that is included. And after that, you have to check the track you apply for. So here you can see that there is a description for each of the tracks, track 1, track 2, and track 3. And then you have to select here the one that you choose. Then, for each of the tracks, there will be some specific questions. So, I come back to the presentation, and I start with the track 1. It's the ready-made track. What is important to consider here? You have to choose a challenge that is already defined. It's defined by our data providers, and you have to choose among them the one that is more suitable for you. So if you go again to the website, here you have the different tracks, and if you choose the ready-made, you can learn more about this ready-made challenge. Here you have the catalog of challenges that are proposed. So you should go one by one, checking what is the best for you, what is more aligned with your business, And then, for example, imagine that you see that you are very interested in the retail sector. Here we have a challenge proposed by a retailer, a Turkish retailer, that it's Migros, and they want to work to have a solution to better know how the lighting conditions affect the customer basket size, for example, and how the temperature and humidity conditions affect the customer basket size. So if you want to solve this challenge, you can check also the data available for that, the data samples available for that, and also the expected outcomes that you should cover with your solution. So if you see that you can solve all these things, you can apply to track 1 and specifically to this challenge. Okay? So choose a specific challenge and be aligned with this challenge. But imagine that you don't see in our catalog a challenge that it's good or interesting for you. You can propose something new, discover a new challenge using our data sets. So this is track 2. There are not predefined challenges, but the conditions for you is that you have to use at least 2 data sets. It's compulsory that at least one of these data sets come from EDI, the data catalog. And for the moment, you will have access to some sample data sets. And then if you are selected, you will have access to the full data sets. So if you again go to the website and you say, okay, I'm going to apply to this half and half challenge, that it's the track 2, here you have all the information and access to the list of data sets available. So you can click here and check the 38 data sets that we have available for this second open call. You can choose the one that better fits your idea and mix it with other data sets that can be open source or even yours. So with this mix of data, you can apply to track 2. But, well, again, imagine that no track 1 is good for you, even the track 2 is far from your business. There is another possibility with track 3. If you already work with a company that has data and a challenge associated to this data, if you apply together with this data provider, you can participate in our track 3. So it's important here to take into account that you can propose a new thing, your own challenge and your own solution, but you have to apply with your data provider. In fact, when you go to the form and apply in track 3, let me show you. Not here. Okay, when you apply under track 3, take into account that there is here a link to an external form in Google Forms that the data provider should fill to be an eligible proposal. So it's important to have the commitment of the data provider at the application stage. Then they will be invited to sign a memorandum of understanding to reinforce the commitment of this data provider. And well, we expect here to have them participating in the meetings and events that the project organizes. So here it's very open, but you need a data provider. Okay, now you have selected your challenge, you have filled all the information, and you are ready to submit the form through F6S. Remember that this must be done by the 19th of June. And well, to summarize the process, you have to fill an online form. This online form contains a declaration of honor that you have to click. And then in the case of track 3, you have to fill also, the data provider has to fill also a external form. Recommendation, tips, important things to have under consideration. Please fill all the fields in the form. For example, imagine that you have to fill the section about competitors. Don't leave it empty. Perhaps you don't have direct competitors, but I'm sure that at least you can explain some indirect competitors that you have. Another important recommendation, read very carefully all the explanations and instructions that are included in the form, because they are key for success. For example, I'm going to show you the section for team. Here, when you start in the section, there are some important tips here included, so take them into account. For example, note that to be eligible, founder commitment is required, so the first team member to be explained should be the founder. Another tip, team member 1 and team member 2, the explanation for them is mandatory. For team member 3 and 4 is highly advisable. So if there are at least 4 members in the team, it's highly advisable to explain their profile. And finally, another thing important to take into account, we ask you to include both technical and business profiles in the team selected for the project to have a balanced team. So be sure that you follow all this advice included in the form. And again, I come back to the presentation to explain you what happened once that it is submitted. Once that the proposal is submitted and we start with the evaluation process, we check the eligibility of your proposal. There are 9 eligibility criteria well described in the guidelines, and I will summarize it in the presentation. First, the way of participation to be eligible is to be as applicant, to be an SME, according to the European Commission definition, or it's also possible to participate as a group of individuals, as Diego already said, if you are established in the EU or associated countries. More things, important things. We want original work. The uniqueness of your proposal is important. Also, we are not going to double found proposals under the same kind of programs. So if you have been participated in data bits, that it's a similar program to EDI, you are not eligible to participate in EDI. The same applies if you have already been selected in our first call in EDI. More things, use our data that it's included in the EDI catalog, except if you apply for track 3. If you apply under track 1 and track 2, it's compulsory to use data sets from EDI catalog. More things about eligibility. This is a big data incubator, so you have to use big data tools. More things, fill in the proposal with valid information. Clearly justify your selected challenge. You have seen that this is the first step in the form, so do it and do it properly, explaining very well what's your solution, how you address the challenge. And finally, multiple participation is not allowed. The same company is not able to submit more than 1 proposal. So perhaps you find interesting 2 different challenges, but you cannot submit 2 proposals. Once that you have checked the eligibility criteria, there is a second step, the automatic sorting. Based on the information that you have included in the form, we will automatically sort the proposals following some internal red flags that we have established. These are not public, they will be public after the last call of EDI. They are some quality indicators that the consortium will check in your proposal to assess if, in fact, the proposal is suitable for the EDI incubation program. These red flags or indicators are different depending on if you are an early stage company. This is the case of team of individuals not already established as a company, or for SMEs with 3 years or less. If you are an established company, this is SMEs with more than 3 years. In this case, there will be another quality indicators that will be checked. And then the last phase of the evaluation is, well, the evaluation as in fact, and there are 3 different criteria that will be checked: the technical approach, the business potential, and the team composition. All of them has a maximum score of 5 points, and at least you must have 3 points on each criteria and a total of 12 for the whole proposal to be over the threshold and have options to be selected. In addition to this criteria that will be assessed by external reviewers, there is also another thing that it is checked, that it's the challenge fit. For example, in the case of track 1, the data provider will assess if your solution proposed really fits his challenge. So this will be evaluated with a yes or no. And here you have the whole process. So summarizing, here we have the first check, that it's the eligibility criteria, and the second one, that it's the red flags. So if you are not eligible or you have any red flag in your proposal, you will receive a rejection letter. You won't be evaluated. Imagine that everything goes well and this is eligible, the red flags are okay, and you go to the remote evaluation. Then, as a result of this evaluation, the proposal can be rejected if this is under the threshold or has a low score. It can go to the waiting list if this is over the threshold but not selected for participation. And finally, the good option that it's to be pre-selected to participate in EDI. If you are in this category and you are selected, you will be notified about that by the 26th of July. And well, this is everything. So now the only thing pending is to apply. Remember that it must be done by the 19th of June at noon, not midnight. Be careful with this, okay? And that's it from my side.
Thank you, Sarah. So passing now to Cyprian.
Yes, I'm going to share the Cyprian slides. Okay.
Cool, awesome. I'm super excited to meet you, all of you, and I hope my presentation is going to be useful. So this is Cyprian Borodescu, co-founder and CEO at Morpho, where we use big data and machine learning to predict user behaviors in digital products and services. And we do that with the end goal of increasing KPIs, product KPI, business KPIs, through personalization. Now, during EDI, our challenge was to classify user search intents. Next slide, please. Or can I do it myself? No. Okay. So was to classify user search intents into 3 classes: informational, navigational, and transactional. And our data provider was JOT Internet media. Now, I won't go into any technical details. I just want to give you a few practical pointers based on our experience with the European Data Incubator for each of the three key stages: explore, experiment, and evolve. So let's go with, let's start with explore phase, where you have a winning ticket of 5,000 euros. So this is where you'll be in competition with 40, 50 other startups that are trying to impress two juries. It's the technical one and the business one. And I can assure you that this is a competition. This competition is actually one of the most harsh competitions I have ever been. And just take my word for it, because I have my share of those. One thing to remember here is that actually to internalize that it's not the most technical or the most business-oriented startup that are selected. In fact, it's the whole package that counts, including alignment with the EDI challenges and overall fit with the program. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the way we approached the first round of selection was to actually spend 1 month implementing a POC, a proof of concept, based on the data that we had through EDI from JOT Internet Media. And I know that maybe some of you think that 5,000 euros is not enough to actually involve or dedicate resources for implementing a proof of concept. But let me provide you or suggest another perspective. If you don't do that, the chances of you being selected for the next round and having access to a winning ticket of 80,000 euros drop dramatically. So be careful how you choose your strategy. Next slide, please. Have a technical person present in front of a tech jury, ideally the CTO. Do your homework and have slides showing that you actually put time and effort in building that proof of concept. Present what you have learned and provide future implementations or improvements. In our case, we had 30 or 40 iterations until we actually got something valuable and decent for this stage. Rehearse the presentation until you actually get, next slide please, to get to fit within the specific time frame. In our case, I believe it was 10 minutes for the technical jury and 3 minutes only for the business side. Rehearse the Q&A. I see so few entrepreneurs rehearsing their pitch in general, and even fewer rehearsing their Q&As. I would strongly encourage you to rehearse the Q&As as well. Try to come up with the most difficult questions and the most basic ones. Usually these are the hardest to answer. Next slide. Of course, have a business person, ideally the CEO, presenting the business pitch. Same things, rehearse both the pitch and the Q&As. And the next slide for this phase. What I loved about these selection phases is that we received the feedback and the scores on 4 criteria. So we have the challenge fit, we had technical, the business, and the team, plus comments from reviewers. And that basically helped us to have a strategy for winning the next phase and the next phase and so on. Cool, let's jump to the experiment phase. This comes with a winning ticket of 80,000 euros. Now for this phase, we actually built a dashboard, an MVP, based on the work we've already done and presented in the first phase. Next slide. We got really fortunate that we already had a platform which made integrating with this particular model that we developed for JOT really easy. There's not enough time to build something from scratch. So I believe that the best positioned startups here, or companies or teams, are those that already have some sort of product. Starting from zero might work, but the chances you're actually building a valuable product in such a short amount of time, I'm sure you realize, are pretty slim. Now, during this time, you'll have the chances to talk with your data provider. Do this as soon as possible, communicate early and often. Another point I would make is start replicating, next slide please, start replicating what you're doing for EDI challenge. Look for other potential customers, data providers, customers that might, or partners that might be interested in what you're building during EDI. We did that and it was super, super valuable because not only did we understand more about the use cases, but we actually earned ourselves some customers in the process. I would say that the relationship you have with your coach is super important. Next slide. It can make or break your success during EDI, in my personal opinion. It can mediate, your coach can help you mediate the relationship with the data provider, provide valuable input for your business, and facilitate other intros. So definitely engage your coach as soon as possible. Next, and the final phase comes with a winning ticket of 50K. This phase is all about sell, next slide, sell, next slide, sell. That's what you have to do here. But I think you don't have to wait for this phase to actually get to sales or marketing. This is only an addition, a help that you can get on top of what you're already doing. For example, what we did here was to finalize or to put in place a sales funnel and operations and execute on that and have a dedicated sales coach to guide us. So since my time is almost over, I have, in conclusion, a couple of general points. So EDI is an incredible opportunity for startups in the big data and AI space as long as there's a good alignment with the challenge. You get what you put into it. Do not underestimate the competition during EDI. It's fierce, I can tell you for sure. However, I would also encourage you to create relationships with other founders, entrepreneurs, and have regular meetings to discuss your challenges, especially the business ones. You might basically realize that another fellow entrepreneur has a solution for your situation. Yep, that's it from my side. Good luck. And if you have any questions, that's where you can find me, or I can happy to answer any questions at the end of the session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cyprian, for your input. It was great to have you on board of the first round. I'm going to pass over to Vinay. Hello?
Hey there. Hello.
Hi. Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, super. Hey guys. Hi, everyone. My name is Vinay. I'm the founder and the CEO of a company called Leadcraft, based in Copenhagen in Denmark. We specialize in building environmental sensing as a service. So we basically build hardware and software platforms for how to optimize indoor climate and building energy consumption. So our challenge was connected to a company called VPS in Portugal, who provided us with data on the ventilation systems that consume a lot of energy in big commercial buildings. So we were sort of the consuming data on the HVAC systems from buildings and trying to predict and forecast how the energy consumption patterns can be optimized in different ways in order to save costs. Of course, our data provider was very focused on saving costs, and that was definitely of high value. It makes a good business case. But what we did was that we also brought in an additional dimension or a new angle to the story, and that's mostly to do with the health and the well-being of people who are actually using the buildings. Because yes, it's true that you can save a lot of costs by cutting energy, but you also compromise the quality of life for people inside. So it's a really delicate balance, and how to find the balance is the hard part. And that's where I think this whole EDI process was really, really fruitful for us to find a really, really powerful business case and a story. And I think Crispin did a wonderful job of explaining very visually the whole process, so I won't repeat that. So instead, I would rather focus on a few sort of suggestions or ideas of how you can approach this. So I think the first round of when you apply for the initial phase, I would ask all of you guys to wholeheartedly think about what value you can create with the data, either from your data provider that you choose or from data that you bring yourself. And I'm glad that Diego and team have now sort of thought this through also in a much better way, where you can actually blend data sources. And I think, for example, we did that in our case, and that proved to be immensely valuable. So value of data is the key question that you've got to ask yourself. And I think a big part of the application that you submit in the beginning, apart from all the technical stuff and all the regular administrative things you've got to fill out, I think you should really try to clarify how you can actually generate value for your stakeholders. Your stakeholders could be your data provider, but also could be others, including yourself. And I think that would be seen pretty well by the reviewers. Then there's the actual, let's call it session that happens in the first phase, where you come present yourself and your early experiments and exploration of the data set. And here I would say don't be shy, because your data providers are looking for a certain angle or a certain story, and you can add to that, and you can bring additional ideas and concepts to the table. I think it's much appreciated, and I think that's something that you should be bold about, and commit yourself to actually creating the engagement model that's required to drive the value that you're seeking. With regards to the technology business case balance, I think, as Krishnan said, like, I think it's not a one shot, one angle type story. This is a really holistic approach, and that's what we really appreciated. We got a lot of value out of actually discussing our scenarios with multiple stakeholders. We had a really excellent coach who actually walked us through a lot of the technical opportunities that we could exploit. And then we had a series of different business case discussions and even implementation discussions with the various stakeholders, including our data provider. So I think have an open mind about this, but be very sharp about the value proposition that you want to go for. Last but not the least, I think I would definitely say that it's a very transformative process, at least for us. It was deeply engaging. It's very true that you got to spend quite a lot of man hours on this stuff. But so when you step into this, I think you need to take a deep breath, and you have to have a clear idea of why you are doing this. In our case, we already have a product in the market, and we were looking to transform our business model. So that's like our traditional business model was hardware sales with software subscriptions, and the EDI program actually allowed us to be bold about changing our business model into a SaaS type or subscription type business model. And that kind of journey is a very let's call it a meandering story, where you have to discover different approaches and ideas and see which one really makes sense. So you have to do this wholeheartedly. For all of you who are applying for the first time, please treat this as a very sincere effort, because I think the sincerity and the diligence really shows through. At least from the reviewer's point of view, I think they really appreciate that you do this very wholeheartedly, and it's not yet another project in your little ecosystem. So I think that is a key value. And I think most of the people on the jury and on the review panel and all that are highly experienced people, so they can see through cases where they feel a little doubt about the actual diligence and sincerity of your approach. And I think, so if you're embarking on this journey, please do it very, very sincerely. That's my only recommendation. One other financial thing that you might want to consider, depending on where you're based and what kind of cost overheads you have, the maturity of your company, and the stage at which you are, the size of the team, a lot of these factors. So before you submit your application, just do a little cash flow analysis for yourself to see if you do make it through to all the stages, does it actually help subsidize the costs that you're incurring? So this is another little tip, because some of you might be really early in a situation where you don't have much overheads, and that's fantastic that the money can actually give you a tremendous boost. Some of you might be in late stages where money is not really the criteria, so I think you have to see what other value we can extract from this. And I think for us, some of the biggest values that we got out of this, apart from a little bit of cash, was that we could actually build connections to a series of new types of stakeholders, explore the business model pivot, and create substantial data as evidence to other types of relationships, including investor relationships and new customers. For example, in our case, by actually leveraging this program, we were able to exploit a new relationship with a very large German company, and that really gave us the opportunity to let's call it steer the sales process in a new way. And I think that's something that you can also expect as an outcome. So technical outcomes alone are not the only criteria. In my head, it can also be commercial outcomes. And with regards to commercial outcomes, I think one simple thing to keep in mind is that this program is not your only channel or only vehicle. You have to use it as an amplifier to what you're already doing. And that'll give you maximum benefit. So you have to not slow down on your sales process. You cannot stop your product development. You've got to keep a sharp focus on what you're doing anyways, and then use this program to accelerate or catalyze that process quite fast. And I think that gives a unique opportunity because it's very rare. I've never seen a program apart from EDI, which actually brings together all the right mix of components that includes data sources, the right commercial stakeholders, the right technical stakeholders, and coaches you through this step by step. So I wish you guys all good luck. And of course, if you have questions, I'm also available to answer any questions you might have. Yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Vinay. That was very useful. Great tips for our applicants. So we will now open Q&A. Please write the name of your startup dash the question on the chat, and we can read it out loud. If you also want to reach out to the team later on, you can approach us at opencall@incubator.eu. So we have an initial question from UK startups. Great to see interest from the UK. Will Brexit be taken into account for the eligibility of corporates and startups?
So the answer is that we believe it's not the case. We will fully confirm it and publish it in the FAQ. But my understanding is that the UK, no matter the result of the Brexit, whether it is a hard or soft one, that you are part of the H2020 program till the end of the program. And therefore, since this is a funding project, you are entitled to get money from that. Anyway, we are going to double check officer and we will publish it as soon as possible. Hopefully this very week. Specific question about this in the FAQ. So please keep checking. Otherwise, contact us again early next week at opencall@edincubator.eu.
Great. We have a few questions from Skutik. Thanks very much. So what is the role of the CEO in the Acceleration Incubation Program? Is it mandatory that he or she participate somehow?
Yes, we consider that it's important to have the commitment of the founders in the proposal. So we expect to have founders described in the project team, and also to explain how this team member, it doesn't matter if this is the founder or another team member, have good skills to carry out the project. It can be a person with a business profile or more technical profile, and it's important to explain that this person is committed in the project and to highlight the experience and skills of this person.
Another question, does the challenge have to be carried out with the big data stacks tools that EDI provides us, or can we use our own products?
Which one is the question in the chat? I couldn't properly.
I'm going to read it again. Does the challenge have to be carried out with the big data stack tools that EDI provides, or can we use our own products?
Okay, the answer is that you can use your own products, no problem. The only thing you need to make sure that you comply with is the regulations or restrictions regarding the access to the full data set. So in the past, in the first round, a flexible scheme was offered. Some data providers forced their subgrantees, their associated companies, to access the data set through the EDI platform. Others made fully available the full data set, and others made it available through an API. So the only restriction is that you come to terms with the data provider on how to access their data, their full data set.
Okay. What happens if we are selected and during one of the different phases we conclude that the external data is needed to enrich the data set?
So you're welcome to use external data sets as long as you are doing it in a respecting law. You know, if you have the rights to access the data, if that data is open data, if you own that data, or if you have granted permission to use that data, then you may use external data to complement the EDI data, which is compulsory to use the EDI data, the one provided by data providers in EDI for track 1 and for track 2.
Can we get the score obtained in the evaluation process if our SME is not between the selected ones?
Okay, if you are evaluated, I mean, if you pass the eligibility criteria and also the red flags, you will be evaluated. So if you are evaluated, it doesn't matter if you are selected or not, you will receive your evaluation summary report with the detail of the score per category. So you will have the information about the technical score, the business score, and the team score.
There are some sample datasets on the first track that are very small. Is this the same sample that we will have to use during the explore part?
Well, during the explore phase, you only have access to the sample datasets, but in the following stage, the experiment, you will receive the full dataset from the data provider.
Moreover, based on the experience of the previous round, data providers, sometimes they were flexible, adding some new columns to the tables or to the data sets that they were facilitating in case that it was detected that further information, if available, was needed. So in that regard, data providers were generally flexible because after all, what they want is you to succeed, find a good solution to their problem.
And a final question from Skutik, are the displacements paid?
You get money for going, for taking part in the Explore stage. So you will have to go to the hackathon with your own money, because you will receive the 5,000 euros after attending the event. That's the situation for the first stage. And for the other ones, once you start the experiment stage, we are already giving you one payment out of the 3 payments in which we split the 80,000 euros of the experiment stage. So with that, you have some credit to attend, to some money to attend also to the first kickoff meeting for the experiment stage in Bilbao and to go to the final event in Bilbao. So within those funds, so obviously you can use those funds to do, you are free to do whatever you want with the money we give you as for taking part in the incubator.
And another question, if we made it to the explore phase last year, but not to the experiment phase, are we eligible to apply again?
No, if you have been selected in the first call for the explore phase, even if you didn't progress beyond the other 2 phases, you are not eligible anymore.
So regarding the question.
Sorry. So question from Power of You. Who will own the IP on the solution created for the data challenge when you're working with the corporate?
Okay, here there are two things. The data and the solution. The data is always property of the data provider, but the solution is developed by the startup and it's the ownership of the startup. After the incubation, if both parts reach to an agreement, they can the startup can commercialize the solution with the data provider to allow this data provider to make an additional use of the solution beyond the project. But the property of the solution is the startup.
Question from Champion Mind. We have not identified a data provider for what we need. We want to build our own data. Would that be acceptable?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. They want to build their data.
They want to use their own data.
To use external data.
Jose, if you mind, please clarify your question below, and I'll ask it again later on. So, question from Gonzalo, hello. When choosing track 1, ready-made challenges, do we have to create a solution that fits the data provider pain points, or can we create a solution for a market need that might not fulfill the data provider expectations?
Okay.
I think that.
Sorry, Diego. I can.
You answer, please.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, if you apply to track 1 and you select a challenge from a data provider, you have to solve this specific challenge. If you want to propose something different, you should go to track 2. Okay.
Thanks. In track 1, we selected one data set from Energa, data provider, and eventually found that the data set is not complete. Can we contact the data provider before we submit our proposal by 19 June?
Okay, here the idea is to have just a sample of the data set in the proposal stage to check how this data is, and later, if you are selected and you progress in the incubation program, you have access to more data. But if you have any specific doubt that it's needed to be solved for the proposal submission, you can ask this question through the official email address of the project, and we will forward this question to the specific data provider.
Question by Place Me. You mentioned the business aspect of the proposal. Does it mean that the product or technology created during the program needs to be rolled out to market, or is it custom made and we should calculate the business case for the data providers?
Okay, here it's important to develop a business approach that, of course, is good not only for the data provider, but that can be used for other potential customers. So this is the solution must be developed according to the data provider needs, but with ambition to be replicated for other customers.
And another question. If we are accepted to another accelerator program, non-big data related, in Singapore, and we, an Ukrainian startup, will incorporate in Singapore, and we want to participate after finish the other program in September, is it possible to join EDI? So I understand that the program ends in September.
Okay, here the problem is that if I didn't understood wrong, you are based in Singapore, and unfortunately, this is not an eligible country.
So the company is based in Ukraine, and I understand that they're going to participate in a program in Singapore that will end in September.
I
Okay.
think they can participate in this case, and if they're Ukrainian, and anyway, there's no incompatibility with other programs, except the data pitch one that was pointed out, that belong to the same call as ours. So this is the reason why they are incompatible.
Thank you. Yes, question if the webinar is being recorded. Yes, and will be provided afterwards. Another question from Sirenush. Do we need to present our own data set, the second half of the data set, during the proposal submission stage?
Okay, during the proposal stage, you have access only to the same sample of the data sets. In a later stage, you will receive the full data set.
Yes, but they meant also their own data set. If they want to mix it with an EDI data set, if they go, well, if I understand it right, if you want to apply for track 2, in the proposal, you should also give details about that data set that you own or you have access to that you want to combine with the EDI data set in order to ensure that your approach is credible, feasible. Okay.
Great. And back to Jose from Champion Mind. For track 3, there is not a data provider who provides the bid data we need. We are building a platform from which we will be collecting the data we need to solve the problems we identified. Is this acceptable?
Well, if you don't have a data provider committed to participate with you, this is not acceptable. If it is the case that you have access to some data, you can use this and mix it with EDI data under track 2.
Great. So final question from Metris. For track 3, are there criteria that need to be taken into account for corporates? How will the challenge and the solution be evaluated?
Okay, under track 3, the first thing that we evaluate is if you have a data provider applying with you, sharing data, and we will evaluate the kind of challenge proposed by this data provider and the solution that you propose to solve this challenge. So in this case, this will be evaluated according to technical, business, and team criteria by external evaluators in the same way that the other applicants under other tracks.
Thank you. So no further questions at this stage. Feel free to reach out to opencall@ediincubator.eu. And yes, there is still another question from Gonzalo. Hi. I've noticed that some example tools you mentioned on your website are outdated or have newer and more powerful competitors. Are the red flags based on the tools that we will use?
No, the red flags are not based on the tools you will use. And actually, the data you have there was the version of software that we were using for the first round. It will get updated before the experiment stage of second round begins, which will be in November of 2019.
Thanks. And another question from Paul regarding the country participation. For this, please check the FAQ section on the project website at incubator.eu. So thank you very much for participating in the webinar. Make sure to apply on time and don't leave it to the last minute. So the deadline, again, is 19th of June at noon, not midnight. CEST. So thank you very much, and feel free to contact us on opencall@edincubator.eu if you have any other questions. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye. Thank you.